I'm so excited to see so many friendly faces and carpool buddies and junior league friends and from all over. So I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me. There are a couple of my board members here that I want to acknowledge. Julie Forrester is back here and Nell Beck is over here. I think they came just to make sure I'm telling the truth. Because I call it embellish quite a bit. And we must have some Methodist guests because they're sitting way at the back. That's what we do. We slip in, we put $5 in the collection plate, and then we go to brunch, trying to beat those Baptists there. But I'm just so thrilled to be here with you guys today. And I want this to be interactive. I want us to talk about not only, I can tell you what I do, but it's more important than that. It's the issue that I have to work with, the fact that we have to have this, that I have a job at all. I do want to thank the board members for letting me have it, though. You know, St. Michael has such an incredible, incredible history of ministry. St. Michael has such an incredible history of ministry. In fact, the story that I'm going to tell you really began within the Episcopal Diocese, but then also, you know what, I'm going to grab my phone so I can watch the time, because you all who know me know I will go on and on about this. So the story that I'm going to tell you actually started a little bit over 30 years ago. There was an Episcopal priest, many of you all will remember him, Father Jerry Hill, who actually worked downtown in the basement of First Presbyterian Church in the stew pot down there, and was basically the street priest for the homeless. An amazing man of God, a generous, a wonderful guy. And he had been working with the folks down there trying to get them, the homeless of Dallas, and he was trying to get them food and, you know, warm blankets and just the very basics. And one day, some great people of this community, great people of God, walked in. Henry Seebeck Jr. and Charlie Sprague of First Presbyterian, and Kirk Anderson of St. Michael, and Father Bill Power and Punkin Power. And they walked in and they looked at Father Hill and they said, where do these people sleep when it's 20 below? There was no Salvation Army, there was no bridge, there was no Dallas Life Foundation. And basically Father Hill said, these people sleep under a bridge or and they eat out of a dumpster when the stew pot is closed. And they said that's not okay. They said that is not appropriate, and they began to raise money to build the Austin Street Shelter, which opened its doors on Austin Street. It has since moved into the Deep Ellum area, but those very first folks who had and it was very meager, a mat to sleep on, but it was out of the weather, and it was a hot meal, and many of you all bring dinners down to Austin Street and have done so for 25, 30 years. Well, also, while these folks were down there talking to Father Hill about building the Austin Street Center, there was a woman who was actually living in her Suburban and feeding her children at the stew pot because it was not safe to be at home. And when Father Hill began to talk to her, he realized that she was not chronically homeless, that she was actually a battered woman. And when he tried to find a safe battered women's shelter to get her up out of that homeless population, on that day, Dallas, Texas, God bless America, the closest available bed was Jacksonville, Florida. And these same folks, Henry Seebeck Jr. and Dr. Charles Sprague and these great men of faith, said that's not okay either. Now they could have said, you know what, we got our hands full. They could have said, you know, gosh, that's a woman's issue, right? They could have said a whole lot of things, but they didn't. They saw the need, and from the basement of First Presbyterian Church rose up the Austin Street Shelter and also Genesis Women's Shelter, that for 30 years has been providing safety and shelter and counseling and information for women and children who are living in their Suburban and feeding their children wherever they can because it's not safe to be at home. I wish I knew that woman's name. I wish I knew that woman who had the courage to go to the stew pot and feed her children there. Because of her, her courage, I would love to thank her because her courage changed absolutely the way this community addresses the issue of domestic violence. So for me, it took a little bit more time for God to do his work. It wasn't as obvious to me as it was to Henry and Charlie and those guys 30 years ago. It took God a little longer, and it took him to have a little more patience. Some of you all have heard my junior league story. How I got to Genesis, I was actually a volunteer with the Junior League of Dallas, and I just kind of went and I did my thing, and I I was what I call the minor leaguers. I sat in the back and I made my grocery list and I went to my minimum number of meetings. And I would sign up for the easy way out. Well, I'm just going to tell you right now, look for the easy way out makes God laugh, right? I'm 40 years old. I volunteered in my church. I went and read at my children's school. Oh my goodness, if somebody had a hysterectomy, I had that lasagna casserole before they got my I was the Kool-Aid mom of the block. And that didn't seem to be enough for God. I didn't realize at the time that he had another plan for me. And so I was actually on my way to sign up for, this is before everything was all online, I went to sign up for my junior league placement. And I'd stopped on Lover's Lane to get one of my, I call them my junior league acrylic nails fixed. And I want to do good in the community, but I think my nails ought to look nice. So I'm going in there and I'm waiting to get my nails fixed. And I'm kind of in a hurry because I looked through the book for the easy way out, and I wanted to get there before my girlfriends, got there and filled it up. But anyway, I sat down and a magazine literally fell in my lap and said, every 12 seconds in this country, a woman is battered. I thought, well, nobody who looks like me or lives near me or has an education like I have. And it said 1 out of every 4 women in North Dallas and South Dallas, all across our communities, will know domestic violence. I'm like, how can that possibly be? And it said that domestic violence was the leading cause of injury to women in the United States. I am like, certainly not in University Park, certainly not in the junior league at Dallas. Well, I went on to read a story that was talked about a woman. She was a dentist, I think, and he was a lawyer or vice versa. They were both professional. And basically, guys, he beat her with a tire tool because dinner was late. And I was offended. My response was to be offended. I did get my nail fixed, but by the time I got to junior league, I forgot all about the easy way out, and I opened the book to violence intervention, and I put my finger on Genesis Women's Shelter. I never even heard of Genesis, but that's where my finger went, and that's where I went. And I got down there, and again I was offended. I thought battered women would look differently than I do. I thought that their kids would not look like mine. And what I found was that battered women are tall and short and fat and thin, and we are black and white and Hispanic. The only common thread I can find among all women who access Genesis is that they were in a relationship with an abusive partner. So I kept volunteering and volunteering. I was the Tuesday morning volunteer. Mel, I think you were the Tuesday afternoon volunteer. We would change shifts right in the middle of the day. And then one day I actually represented the junior league on the board of directors, and the president of the board at that time made an announcement, we need a new executive director. She needs to be able to work the crowd and raise money, and out of my mouth shoots, oh my gosh, I think that's me. I'm looking around to see who said it. Remember, I'm the Kool-Aid mom of the block. I make the lasagna. What do I know? I'd never read a financial statement. I had never, managed a staff. But you know what? I stepped up. Not knowing, I just put one foot in front of the other. And 26 years later, here I am just putting one foot in front of the other. But it changed my life. And I'd like to think I have changed others, but I guarantee it has done more for me than I possibly could know that it did for someone else. So how does that work for me? If I think of Scripture, I often think of, my sort of explanation to God why it took me so darn long, is the parable of the Good Samaritan that we know is in the 10th chapter of Luke. And we all know the story. And I often think how common those responses were to maybe my response or maybe society's response to the issue of domestic violence. So, the priest and the Levite, they were passing by. I don't know what a Levite is, but he was passing by after the priest, but they saw, but they really didn't see. Now, the person by the side of the road, you all know, was clearly injured. He hadn't just fallen off his donkey. He had been assaulted, but they just kept on going. But then here comes the Samaritan. Samaria was the country that everybody was like, they hated. You would walk around Samaria, so not to get any Samaritan stuff on you. I don't know who I would, maybe it's the homeless. Maybe that, when we roll up our windows as we come up to one of those street lights where the homeless are standing, who would it be today that would be the equivalent? I'm not sure. But the Samaritan literally just got off. He was walking. He goes over to the man that's hurt. He put him on his own donkey. He takes him to the next town. He literally gives the hotel guy, the innkeeper, what money he had, and if that's not enough, I'll come back. He basically did what he could with what he had. So why did the priest and the Levite pass by? I think about that all the time because I think that's who I probably was back then. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they saw the guy by the road, but they thought, well, maybe his assailant is near, and we might be hurt if we tried to intervene there. Maybe they weren't prepared. Maybe in seminary, the priest never had any information on the issue of that kind of abuse. Maybe they didn't know what the resources were. They didn't know what to do if they did intervene. And maybe I just wonder if they didn't blame that victim. What's that guy doing, riding along this time of night all by himself? Didn't he know this was a dangerous part of town? But again, the Samaritan didn't do any of that. He just got off his donkey, he responded, did what he could with what he had. So I think about that not only with how I got to Genesis, but isn't that what most of society does? We don't think about it. It's like a disease that's never touched our family, ourselves. Are we afraid to get involved? Or do we not know what the resources are? Do we blame the victim? So that magazine told me that every 12 seconds, a woman is assaulted. So in the hour that we're here, 350 moms and daughters and sisters and co-workers will be hurt by someone who tells her it's her fault, by someone who tells her that he loves her, and by someone who tells the rest of us it's none of our business. In fact, according to the American Medical Association, 5 women will die today. 5 women will die, and if I've done my math correctly today, if I've done my math correctly, by the end of the month, domestic violence will have claimed every single person who is sitting in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just too much. That is absolutely too much. You know, the crime most often is perpetrated against women by men, but you men in this room have absolutely a unique opportunity to do something about this, because when a man stands up and says, I'm not going to play golf with you because I don't like how you speak to your wife, or I'm not going to do a business deal with you, or do you remember, like, if you roll back the clock and maybe you have golf buddies and you're on the golf course and somebody used an ethnic slur, they used the N-word. You know, today we don't tolerate it. We absolutely would say, you know what, don't say that. That's not funny. That joke is not funny. Why would we do less for our sisters and our moms and our friends? How do we laugh at battered women's jokes? How do we tolerate? I know it's hard to do. Believe me, it's hard to do, not to shake a guy's hand. We actually have an auxiliary at Genesis called Heroes. He respects others. And it's men who have said, not in my home. If it's not okay in my home, then it certainly is not okay with me if it happens in your home. It's not enough for me not to drink and drive, but Mothers Against Drug Drivers don't want anybody drinking and driving, right? And so we have to hold each other accountable for that. You know, I think it's so easy for us to think this happens to someone else and think it can't touch us or our faith community. St. Michael, however, knows otherwise for sure, that domestic violence is an equal opportunity. Again, because I refer to she as the victim and he is the perpetrator. There's a couple of reasons for that. At Genesis, that's all we do. We help battered women and their kiddos, but also in 95% of the battered population, the woman is the victim. But there are men who batter, and the severity is usually much greater when the woman is the victim. There are men who are battered, there are men who are battered by women or same gender partners. The dynamics are the same, the cycle is the same, but just for the sake of ease today, I'm going to use she as the victim. So why does he do it? Why do you think he does it? Why do you think a man would beat his wife? What kind of coward does that? What do you all think? Why would a guy do that? Well, yeah, that is why he does it. The control, fear, maybe low self-esteem on his part, but he also does it because it works. So I hear often reasons why I got a beating. I got a beating because I fried chicken instead of baking it. Well, if every time I fried chicken I get a beating, what am I going to do? I'm going to quit frying chicken. And so in that guy's mind, that negative reinforcement actually perpetuates that abuse. He does it because it works, okay? He does it because he can. He does it because we as a society, ladies and gentlemen, have not found the impetus for him to change his behavior. Now, you all had Chief Brown here last time, right? Oh, this guy is on fire about ending violence against women and kids. I don't know if he spoke about it at all, but I got to tell you, every time Mayor Rawlings is on fire about ending violence against women and kiddos. But Chief Brown has instigated and still, did he talk about lethality assessment by any chance? It's a response that now patrol officers ask women when they go in, or victims when they go into homes. He is a part of the solution as well. You know, abusers are, it's funny, we can't recognize them. Sometimes I will be in a group and the hair on the back of my neck stands up, but I'm not clairvoyant. But the tricky part is we can't see them coming. No little girl grows up and says, I would like to be in an abusive relationship. These guys, their qualities, the way they do it is like if we were making stew for example. Most of the women in here, some of the guys are cooks, we've made stew. It's basically the same recipe. It's carrots, meats, potatoes, onions. But then other ingredients, you add other ingredients that make you what you are. So an abuser is like that. He's like the ingredients of a recipe. The basics are there, but it may be different among each abuser. So maybe one can be very severely controlling, but he helps at home and he helps with childcare. Another might allow his partner to come and go, but if dinner is late, there is a huge price to pay for that. Or others can be less controlling, but this mind-twisting verbal abuse at home behind closed doors, each one is a little bit different. But let's talk about why it happens, why this epidemic happens at all. One reason it always has, throughout history, throughout most societies, men have assumed a dominant position and women are more passive. I'm not knocking that if that works at your house. It definitely would not fly at mine, but if it works at yours, that's great, unless that balance is kept through the use of physical force, okay? It happens because it always has. It happens because we're in a society that eroticizes violence. If you look at the music and the movies. Now, horribly, graphically violent movies does not make a gentle man violent. I've known Don Waddington for so many years, and there's nothing we could do to make Don Waddington he was a gentle guy. So it doesn't matter what movie he watches or what music he listens to, he is one of our heroes for sure. But for someone who has a propensity for violence, this onslaught, especially with our kiddos, they get so many messages about being a tough guy and being abusive and being violent. And then you know what we do? We pay somebody $11 million and we don't care to come play football, and we don't care that they beat their girlfriends or beat their wives. We even saw it on a video in an elevator and we didn't care. If he can play football, we somehow disregard that. And I gotta tell you, I think we have to have zero tolerance, because as soon as we open the door, as soon as we open the window just a little bit, in comes this monster that feeds in the dark. But the main reason why it happens is that she stays. Now, the number one question I'm asked all the time is, why would a woman stay? Why did your mom stay in it? Why didn't she get out? Why does your daughter still date that guy or live with him? Why isn't your granddaughter safe in her home? That's the question I'm asked. Why didn't she just get out? But what's the real answer? I mean, what's the real question? What should I be asked every single day? Not why does she stay, but what?
Why did she get out?
Why doesn't she get out? Almost, but not really. Yes. We ask that, but what is the real question we ought to be asking?
Why does she do it?
Thank you very much. What kind of coward beats his wife? What kind of man beats the mother of his children? How do we not have zero tolerance? Why isn't that the question we're asking? But that's not what's asked. It's not what's asked by the juries. It's not what is asked often by friends and neighbors. It's not the question that's asked by perhaps a patrol officer that comes out to my house. Why doesn't she just get out? Why didn't she get out? As if that's the answer. Think about it. If Steve Langbein were abusive to me, and I did get out, and I moved across the street, does that make him a gentle man? Well, no, of course it doesn't. Okay, what if I moved a mile away, or if I moved to Fort Worth? Does that change him? It absolutely does not. In fact, I could move to Hoboken, New Jersey, where he couldn't find me, but I guarantee he's just going to come and be abusive to you. So nothing I can do can change the behavior, but that's the question I'm asked. So I'm over at Lover's Lane Methodist Church a couple of years ago, and I had been invited by a layperson to come speak to the 10-year-olds, right? So I love doing that, but about 4 weeks out, the director of Christian education calls me, and she says, hey, we're glad you're coming. We're going to be in room 357. There'll be about 100 kids in there, and by the way, it'll scare the kids. And I'm like, great. And so the next week she calls me, and she says, okay, so we got a parking place coned off for you. Lesson to all of you, okay? Cone it off for the person that's coming to speak for you. Anyway, I will go anywhere. Highland Park Methodist, if they would put valet parking in, I would be in church more often. But I may suggest that. I swear I may suggest that. Anyway, so I've got a coned off place. You just pull in, the usher will tell you where you're going, come in those two double doors, and by the way, don't scare the kids. Well, the next week here came another one that all ended in don't scare the kids. And it's kind of slow on that uptake, but I finally said, are you worried about what I have to say? Are you worried about what I'm going to talk about? And she said, well, here's the thing. Lovers Lane is a wonderful congregation, and we're in a very nice neighborhood. And we don't have that sort of thing in our church, not in our church. Thank you. So I get there that Sunday morning, and I've got these 10-year-olds, fourth graders, and I talk about Genesis, and I try to tone it down a little. I speak differently when I'm talking to cops or doctors, but when I'm talking to 10-year-olds, I talk about Genesis being a safe place for moms and kids when it's no longer safe at home. And I said, why do you think mom would not want to go? Why do you think a mom wouldn't want to leave? And those kids, that Sunday morning at Lovers Lane Methodist Church, where it doesn't happen, came up with 27 reasons why mom wouldn't go. And even one little girl raised her hand and said, I have a question, if mom is hurt at home and mom leaves and goes to Genesis, does the little girl get to go with mom, or does she have to stay home with dad? Are you kidding? Are you lay leaders listening? Are we truly listening? I hope we are, to the cries of these children that live it and know it. Anyway, I'd love for you all to be half as smart as the 10-year-olds. Why do you think your mom would not get out? Why do you think a woman would stay in a violent home? What do you all think? Absolutely, the kiddos. Unfortunately, the saddest excuse of all of them, because kids who are raised in a violent home get on-the-job training to be tomorrow's victims and to be tomorrow's abusers. And so to say kiddos are the reason I stay is a sad excuse. Why else would she stay? Isn't it? Fear of the unknown, absolutely. I know how to bob and weave, but you know what? I've been told for 20 years, you'll never get a job, nobody will hire you, nobody's going to help you, nobody's going to believe you, and that becomes my reality. You know, all of us in here know that 2 + 2 is 4, right? We know 2 + 2 is 4 because somebody of authority told us that, a teacher, a parent, and then we were given 100 examples why 2 + 2 is 4. 2 beans plus 2 beans is 4 beans, or 2 Coke cans plus 2 Coke cans are 4 Coke cans. Someone living in an abusive relationship is told she's not good enough. 100 ways he tells her why that's true. You can't cook rice, you don't clean the house, there's no beer in the icebox, there's, you can't get a job, you're not a good mother, and all of a sudden, 2 + 2 to her is 5. It's called false reality. It becomes who she is. That she, and absolutely by that point, she has no idea what the unknown is. At least I know this devil. I don't know what's out there, and I probably think that 2 + 2 is 5. Anyway, so how could I survive? Why else would she stay? No money. And I got to tell you, some of the poorest women I know live in 75205 and 225. These are women who have no idea what he makes. Even if she has a job, it goes straight into his bank account. She has no idea that the house is in his name, and the car is in his name, and the house in Aspen is in his name. Stock portfolio is in his name. Business is in the business partner's name. She has nothing but the clothes on her back, and he's responsible for it. Now, we think this is just poor women in South Dallas who, doesn't have a job and can't get a job because she doesn't have daycare, and she doesn't have daycare because she doesn't have any money. She doesn't have any money because she doesn't have a job, so she's stuck. But I want to tell you, the women who live right around us feel like they have no place to go. I was thinking about this Ray Rice thing. We had the wife of a Dallas cowboy come to Genesis one night. Now you're thinking, how does that happen? Well, he had assaulted her in her home. She runs out of that, $7 million house in up north in her nightgown, runs out of the house that he bought and paid for and is in his name. 3 doors down to where her parents live, in the $7 million house that he bought for and paid for and was in his name. They opened the front door and said, he's already called here. If we take you in, we are homeless at 70 and 75, and they slammed the door in their face. But think about it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So she runs around the block to her brother's house, the house that he bought for and paid for, and it is in his name, and he wouldn't even open the doors. There she stood in her nightgown, nothing but the clothes on her back, and a police officer drove by and brought her to Genesis that night. And people say, why do those women go back? Why do they even go back? Well, I don't even have my purse. I don't have my ID. Why do they go back? She stays because she has no money. She stays because she went perhaps to her priest or pastor, and he said, go home and read Ephesians 5. I am so tired of that one. Wives, submit to your husbands. But if you read on down the rest of the chapter, guys, it says, husbands, love your wives like Christ did the church. In fact, in Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus, there are 9 directives toward the husband and only 3 toward the wife. But what do we hear all the time? Wives, submit to your husbands. She stays because she has no place to go. On any given night in the city of Dallas, there are only 100 safe beds for battered women. Genesis is dancing as fast as we can. The Dallas police answering 18,000 domestic violence calls every year. She stays because leaving doesn't stop the violence. 75% of all women who are killed after they have left. You know, just a few weeks ago, we observed the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, stage 5, what's it called? Category 5 hurricane that devastated the coast of our country. And I remember watching people, you know, mandatory evacuation, get out, you know, down by buses into the Superdome, not knowing, you know, split from families, everything is destroyed. And I thought, at the time, too, they were also criticizing the people who wouldn't evacuate. Why didn't those people get out? Don't they know how much trouble they're in? We're blaming those people for not getting away. Understand that people in New Orleans, they live under a hurricane all the time. Hurricane comes, they pack up for the weekend, go to Mama's house in North Louisiana, take 3 pills of high blood pressure, and come on back in 3 days. That's how it happens. But this time that levee broke. Well, I think so often about, you know, the similarities between women who live in these violent homes. I mean, these storms have come and gone, and maybe I went home to my mama's house for 3 days, but this time the levee breaks, and there's one incident that that explodes that convinces her she will die if she doesn't get out now. And that's who comes to Genesis Women's Shelter with no belongings. Everything has been washed away in this flood of abuse. And for these victims, there is no FEMA. For these victims that, you know, when we saw Katrina, we do what Americans always do. We roll up our sleeves and we do drives and we send clothing and food and bottled water and Tide and all these kinds of things. But for these women, there is no FEMA. There are no food drives. It's not spoken about, and it's not often covered by the news. But that's what Genesis Women's Shelter does because of your help. The money that we get from you all helps us keep our lights on. The money that we receive from St. Michael helps provide safety and counseling and case management and food. And for moms who haven't gotten out, they're still living in the storm at our non-residential office, or moms who have gotten out and grab what they can and get out. You know, I think of, in the Gospel of Luke, I often think of this parable, which I didn't actually find until a couple of years ago. You all may know it, but it's in the 13th chapter, verse 11. And it says, "And behold, there was a woman who for 18 years was bent over and could not fully straighten herself. And when Jesus saw her, he called her unto him. And he said, Woman, thou art delivered from thy infirmity. And he laid his hands upon her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God." Now, in typical church committee fashion, the rulers of the synagogue at that time started criticizing Jesus. You're not supposed to do that on Sunday. Who is the committee that you can just imagine? Maybe you, as Episcopalians, aren't like that, but we love us a potluck and a good committee at the Methodist Church. But the Lord called them hypocrites. He said, "Ought not this daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on Sabbath day?" In other words, if not here, then where? If not today, then when? I think because of the numbers of people in this room, some of you, I guarantee, have been bent over by fear or by violence or by shame. But we can stand up straight, and we can help others stand up straight as well. You know, I got to hear former First Lady Barbara Bush, tell a story about a guy who, we're out at 45, right? 10:45, is anybody know? Okay. 6 minutes. Look who's counting. Seriously. This guy's like in 5 minutes and 4 minutes. No, okay. All right, so anyway, there was this guy who had flown for the Air Force in the Vietnam War, and after 75 combat missions, his name was Charles Plum, he actually was shot with a surface-to-air missile, and he ejected it into enemy hands, and he spent 6 years in Hanoi Hilton. And he did survive it. He got out, and he now travels around, and he talks about his experience. And he said, he was at dinner one night, the night before he was fixing to do a talk, and this guy comes up to him, and he says, "You're Charles Plum, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You flew off the USS Kitty Hawk in 1975, or whatever it was." He said, "Yes." "You were shot down on this day?" "Yes." He goes, "But how did you know?" He said, "Because, see, I was the guy who packed your parachute. I was the guy who packed your parachute." Charles Plum thought a lot about that. He thought about not only his physical parachute, but the emotional parachute, the spiritual parachute that he had to call upon during his ordeal. He thought about that young sailor who he must have passed by every single day and never knew him, never thanked him, but this guy held in his hands the fate of Charles Plum. So I would ask you not only today, who has packed your parachute, because often we go through life not thanking anyone, not seeing them, like this guy Plum never saw this sailor. But I would ask you also not only who packed yours, but whose do you pack as well? And who, for this community, for this church, what do you pack in the parachutes of victims of domestic violence? Do you pack hope? Do you pack a faith community that invites someone to come and talk about this? Do you provide believing her? Do you provide resources? 1-800-799-SAFE, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. These parachutes, by the way, have to be packed without judgment. They have to be packed with patience. It seems so obvious to us, but we have to put all these things in a parachute. So I want to tell you, yesterday marks the 16th anniversary of Patrick Timothy Richardson coming to worship at St. Michael and All Angels. He came into your sanctuary where he stood in the communal greeting and said, "Peace be with you and also with you." And then he went home right here on Colgate around the corner, and he put an extension cord around my friend Mary's neck. And he, in front of her children, murdered her, he killed her. I still have chills up my back when I think of that then 8-year-old Mary Beth Richardson calling the 911, begging someone to help stop the bleeding. Someone please come and help stop the bleeding. I had spoken to Mary about 2 weeks before she was born, before she was killed, and it was right here on the side of your church. I'd come in to see Father Swan, probably asking him for more money, I don't know. But I came to see Father Swan, and I was walking out, and she was walking in the door to come get the kids from St. Michael and walk them back home every day. She was a wonderful mother. And 2 weeks before she died, I spoke to her. I said, "Hey Mary, how's it going? Good to see you." Just kind of that quick in passing, not really listening, thinking about the next place I had to go. It was just right after that I had lunch with a junior league, a mutual friend of Mary's, but another junior league friend who had a new bruise on her arm. And I said to her, I was talking to Mary, I said, "I'm concerned about her." She said, "I am too, Jan." And I said, "Mary, I'm really scared. We've got to not only tell her to get out, but how to get out." And she said, I know. I said, "Mary, we've got to talk to her about, what we can do to support her." But see, I never asked Mary. In that phone conversation that I had with her, that last phone conversation, I never said, "Are you okay? Are you afraid in your own home?" Guys, I do this for a living, and I missed it. I rolled that conversation back in my head. I bet 2,000 times. Could I have heard it? Could I have said it? Could any of us have seen that coming? Do not think, again, as I once did, that this somehow does not impact us. George Herbert Walker Bush once said that points of light are the soul of America. They are ordinary people who reach beyond themselves to the lives of others, bringing hope and help and friendship and care. That's what St. Michael is. You bring help and friendship and care to those who don't have any. Do we have ears to hear it? Do we have the eyes to see it? Are we paying attention when our kids and our friends are speaking to us? Hope and opportunity and friendship and care. It is that very hope that I will continue in my efforts and the clarity of my passion to continue to help create a community, to help create a nation that realizes that peace on earth begins at home. Thank you for inviting me here. I love seeing my friends. I'd love to get you involved at Genesis. I need $100 from Don to be an official hero. He's a non-official hero, but you gentlemen in this room, come play golf with us. If you're a golfer, come volunteer, sit in court partnership with us. We are down at the courthouse on a regular basis. Please go to our website. There's a menu of opportunities. I think we might have, who's my timekeeper, 30 seconds to any questions you all might have. Yes, sir?
How do you sustain your enthusiasm?
And
how many times a year do you get to tell this story?
Well, I'm doing it 3 times today. Yes, it's a lot. No, my enthusiasm comes from my outrage. A lot of caffeine, I guess, but my enthusiasm comes from my outrage, and I am humbled by the courage that I see of women who will take their children to the stoop hop and feed them. Who am I to have a bad day? Are you kidding me? I am safe in my home. And once we know this, I could have gotten my nail fixed and gone and signed up for something else. But if you know it, how do you turn your back on it? Shame on us if we do turn our backs on it. If God has opened that window to us, I don't know how we walk away. No, don't get me wrong, there are days I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. But I don't know how to do that, and I'll be doing it until it's fixed. And unfortunately, I don't know that it's going to be fixed in my lifetime, so I'll stop talking about it, I guess, when I'm dead, I guess. I don't know. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What role does drugs and alcohol play?
Yeah, a lot of people think that, he beats her, and a lot of victims think he beats me when he's drunk. Well, or because he was drunk, he beats me because he was drunk. He beat her when he was drinking. It isn't a cause and effect. Often there is a relationship, but it's not cause and effect. Sometimes we see where they remove the alcohol, I go to AA, I clean myself up, and the abuse gets worse because there is no crutch. We know there is a partnership, but it is not cause and effect. We see women who he will addict her so that he's got that control over her. Or also, she's also, if I were married to him, I'd be drinking wine all day myself. You know what I'm saying? So we know it's involved, but there are a lot of guys who beat their wives who don't drink at all and never have. So it's not, that's not what it's about. It's about power and control, and you do what I say when I say it, and you'll be sorry if you don't. Yes, ma'am. Treated badly, it is as if we were in a third world country. You will cover yourself. Who can you even believe it's not in another country I'm talking about? You won't go out with my permission, without my permission. It's the very same thing. But no, we can't just think this happened somewhere else, and we can't leave it on the steps of City Hall, or on the steps of Genesis, or on the steps of the Dallas Police Department. We have to be able to hold accountable. Could one of you all have said something to Tim Richardson that morning? Could some of you all have seen that guy coming? Could we have stopped that? Any of us. It's not enough just to say, there you go. What could we have done for Tim Richardson to keep him from ever picking up that extension cord? I think we have to look beyond the obvious. Yes, sir, you had a question.
What's your average length of stay of
Yes.
battered women and children?
At the shelter, the maximum stay is 6 weeks, but we also know, I can't stay on a diet for 6 weeks. We know it takes longer than that to change your life. And so we actually have transitional housing where women can stay a year. And then we also have non-residential. That's really where we do most of our work. It's the non-residential on Lemon Avenue. Women who haven't gotten out, or they haven't gotten out and have another place to sleep. So it's the average stay at the shelter is probably 4 to 5 weeks out of those 6 weeks. The stay at the transitional is almost 100% of the time. And then at the counseling, you can go to counseling, stop for a while, go back, whatever. No cost, no strings attached for any of our services. It doesn't matter if you live in 05 or 25. We don't charge you anything because that's not what should be the roadblock. At the shelter, speaking of roadblocks, we also have daycare and we have preschool and we have the most precious school down there so those kiddos can be as safe as mom is while she's staying there. Yes, sir.
You brought up the Ray Rice incident at the same time you were talking about tolerating that sort of behavior. In your view, once the incident came out, was it handled appropriately?
Okay, you want my answer? You really want my answer? What is the matter with the Dallas Cowboys hiring Greg Hardy? What's the matter with us? I mean, maybe Jerry Jones is in here probably. No, he's never this. That's right. He's at my church. What is wrong with him? Why is it that you get the same penalty through the NFL and they're not a policing agency? I don't know why he is in jail. I don't know why he's not. I don't know why Ray Rice is in jail. If my husband did it, that's where he did. If you did it, that's where you did. Why do we make these excuses for these people? And especially for someone who enjoys the benefits of being in that limelight. If you are a football star to a child, to me, you have a bigger obligation. That's not your question, is it?
Well, no. To get back to the Dallas Cowboy example that you gave, is he in jail? And is that the fault?
No, he's not in jail.
Is that the fault of the Dallas County DA, the Collin County DA?
Yeah.
Why is he?
No, he's not in jail. It didn't happen here. It happened in, what was it, Hardy sold it for Arkansas, maybe.
Well,
it has to happen.
He lives up north in his $7 million house. That happened here.
Oh, that one? Yeah.
Why is he in jail?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Is that the fault of the DA?
We had a DA, by the way, who worked real hard on getting folks out of jail and also would not, and impacted us would not serve an at-large warrant. My guess on the one that I gave you, the Dallas Cowboy deal, that came to Genesis, that one that came to Genesis, was that she didn't want to press charges. He said he didn't do it. Her parents were saying, I don't know anything about it. She's embarrassed. And you got the whole darn NFL coming at you saying, this needs to go away, Missy. That's tough. It's tough to stand up against. And look what a great guy he is, and so on and so forth. I know that some of these guys do end up getting probation for a sentence, not in jail, but get probation, and they're court-ordered to go to Batter's Intervention Counseling. The Family Place and also New Beginning Center in Garland provides that. So I know for a fact you'll see a Dallas Cowboy in there. I wonder how Jason Witten feels. He grew up in it. He knows what it's like to see your mom smacked around. And he talks about that a lot. I'm not speaking out of school, but I wonder how that feels for him. I know we've gone over time a lot. I would just, in many places in the Gospels, Matthew and Mark, even in Revelation, John writes, for those who have ears, let them hear it. And I think with regards to our faith community, they're saying, wouldn't it be a shame if somebody finally had the ears to hear about God's grace and his hope for our lives, and say, Michael, we just weren't talking about it today. We were just having some refreshments, eating the cookies, and getting on about our business. We have to be talking about this constantly. Next month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but for a victim of domestic violence in this congregation, every day, every month is Domestic Violence Awareness. If she had ears to hear it today, after 18 years, that she could stand up straight, would we be talking about it? So I charge you to continue to speak about this and think about it, have print cards for the restrooms, and have people talking to your 10th graders, your 10-year-olds in your 4th grade. Those who have ears, let them hear. Thank you so much for having me.